said, how in the phone? If you want to take video, you have to come, we have to make a meeting. And then,
They never called, they never contacted you again.
okay.
How are you? Good evening. How is Ruvain Stein?
He said he's doing Robert Frank. I met him.
Okay. I haven't seen him in a long time, but I thought it was. Is he coming here at all?
Come every day to learn in the evening.
So he used to come every Mondays. So I thought that lately I haven't been here Monday because when Miroza switched, I switched.
He's doing Robert Frank.
Okay, as long as it's okay, Baruch Hashem, maybe I'll give him a call. Let's call what's his name?
David?
Gottlieb?
Gottlieb.
Called him a few times. I called him.
He moved? Where did he retire to Israel?
His
Wow.
Yeah, we had somebody come in like about a month ago.
He came here?
Morning. Yeah, somebody came in Shabbos morning, a relative of his, saying they had some books from the shul in his apartment, they're cleaning out his apartment, his relatives.
They donated some books to the shul?
No. He had some books from the shul that they're cleaning out his apartment.
Gottlieb came here?
No,
He moved to Eretz Yisrael, he said.
His sister there, and I have his two numbers. One doesn't work, and one.
But now he's in Eretz Yisrael, you can't get through.
He had what to take care of.
Did you?
Gary did.
He has a family in Eretz Yisrael.
What?
Did you get the number from your the sister?
No, but he has what to take care of.
Doesn't make difference. I don't call it. I don't want it.
He's in Eretz Yisrael. You call people in Eretz Yisrael?
New York's
I
not.
have one that
New
once
York's
a
not
month.
getting this place big, you know.
So Rabbi Sai, tonight I would like to finish this sugya. We've been going on for a while in these halachas. Today, earlier, Paris was saying, "What are we going to learn tonight?" He always reaches out to me, and I'm saying, "Is there more to discuss or not?" I looked inside and said, "We have a little bit more to discuss, and this is going to be the last year." Summary, yeah. You're giving me the difficult work.
Nothing different.
A recap.
Just say Be'ezrat Hashem. and
You just need very complicated to return stuff to the chant.
We'll get them. Hashem. We're going to have we'll give a nice summary. I am not going to go through every single din in the siman. It's various dinim, but I would like to take a look at Sif Chavav. Sif Chavav.
Seif Chavav?
Yeah. It's a long Sif, and I would like to learn it tonight, and then maybe we'll make it. So it's Siman Reish Nun Gimel, Sif Chavav, and then next week we'll start something new. Maybe we'll do Hatmana. Maybe we'll do a shir or two on Hatmana.
Not so much Nogia.
Not so much.
Because
Nagaya.
the people don't even put a towel on the hot water like used to be.
Yeah, it's not so Nagaya. Maybe we'll do something else. What halacha should we learn? Anyone want to have any pick of what we should learn?
Dalet.
We could learn Chayvak Aleph. We could learn
Kiddush and
Kiddush.
It's a lot of single guys over here.
Kiddush. Should we do Kiddush? Did we do Kiddush lately?
No.
Hilchas Kiddush next week. What are we going to learn? Hilchas Kiddush. Okay. What's going on with the minyan? There's a minyan usually?
Where?
Here. No. At night.
Yeah.
It's getting schwach lately.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we usually get.
Raylam is moving out of Flatbush.
With this cold weather, people are afraid to get up.
What's in a text 19 People don't realize how the pressure is to learn there.
Yeah, you have to.
Used to be we had a much bigger crowd.
Right.
Used to be a much bigger crowd. You know, we started this year, there used to be like 12 people.
Kavua, not Kavua.
Huh? Ah.
What?
It used to be soup, he said, sir.
No, not because.
Tanya would start with 25.
And how many now?
10, 12, 15.
Much more.
Where does Shalom Ranis? He doesn't live anywhere.
We live in
Months.
Muncie?
He's,
He sold his house?
Not yet.
He still comes back here?
Still some business.
So he rents or he keeps the house open?
I speak to him every day.
No, he rents here. He rents his place out?
I speak to him every week.
You can with Shabbos?
He's one of my callers.
You feel bad? It's getting smaller and smaller this year. Okay, we have to mechadish the shear. Maybe because every night is a shear, so then people feel like it's every night. Maybe if there's 2 nights a week now.
It's not the quantity, the
Every
quality.
morning she also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where?
Where that one?
Yeah. Okay, so basically, let's finish up at Inyan over here and then recap. And next week we'll go on to a new thing. The Olam is saying we should learn Hachas Kiddush. And that, Yael, is that okay? Hachas Kiddush? Sounds good? Excellent. We'll do Hachas Kiddush. I actually started going through some of the Inyanim Le'iyun now in Hachas Kiddush, so it's a good idea. So I'm just going for mentioning this idea. Sif Chav Vav. So let's take a look. Reish and Gimel, Sif Chav Vav.
Page Kuf Tokay.
So remember, we spoke about Dini Shehiyah, Erev Shabbos. We said there's 3 ways you can leave something in the fire of Shabbos. One is if the food is halfway cooked, on the side. The other way is if you have a blech. And the third way is if it's meat, raw meat, and it's right before Shabbos. You put it in a crack pot right before Shabbos. It's awesome. Then we discussed Dini Chazara. Chazara is returning the pot to the fire on Shabbos. That's much more chomer. On Shabbos itself. It's not you're leaving something on the fire at a Shabbos, you're leaving it and you're going away. Chazara means I'm coming back to the fire and I'm putting it on the fire on Shabbos. The Chazal had 2 issues with this. One issue was Shamichata. Maybe you will, when you come to put it back, maybe you'll play with the fire. Maybe you'll touch the fire. Stoke the coals. Erev Shabbos, we also have such a chash, and if it's Meichel the soy, it's okay. And now when I'm returning the pot, I can only return it when it's fully cooked, because otherwise it'd be a bishul problem. So what's the issue? It's a fully cooked. What could there be problem shemichata? So the Alter Rebbe learns that you still need to have a blech, because by Chazara you're required to have a blech. Not like Bishir where it's an option. You have various options, and having a blech is one of them. By Chazara, it's clear from the Mishnah, lo yitain ad sheyiguf yiktem. You cannot return the third pedek, pedekira. Kira shisukhu v'kasha v'gavava. You're not allowed to put the pot on the fire until you do grufa k'tum, which you either shove out the coals or sprinkle the coals with a layer of ashes, which today is a blech. That's what we do today. You must have a blech to do chazara. So Alter Rebbe understands it's because of shasha mi'echata. It's fully cooked. What's the reason why it's something mechata? And Erev Shabbos, you're allowed to leave a pot on the fire even if it's halfway cooked. And we're not worried anymore, shemichat. That removes the chash shemichat. The Alter Rebbe says here that it's on Shabbos itself, and you're coming to the fire. You're coming back to the fire. Not you left something, you leave the kitchen. You're coming back to put something in the shalom. Why are you putting it back on the fire of the shalom? You want it to be extra hot, to stay hot. So we're more worried you're going to shemichata. You must have a blech. The Mishabru does not understand it that way, by the way. Mishabru learns that this Tanai Chazara, it has to have a blech, is because the same reason as all the other conditions. Because nira kimavasha, it looks like you're cooking. We want to avoid doing something that looks like you're cooking. So you want to put something in between, a hefsek, it doesn't look like you're cooking when you cook on a blech. That's the reason, because nira kimavasha. These reasons both originate in Rishonim. They both have Makairis, the Alter Rebbe and the Shurim Rishonim. It just depends how they both understood it. Based on a different understanding, by the way, I see a different approach in Halacha L'Maisa. What could there be a difference in Halacha L'Maisa? Seemingly, the Mishnah says, cool, you have to have a blech. The question is the reason behind it. Alter Rebbe is saying Shemi Yechata, based on the Rishonim that he's going with. And Mishabur is saying the reason why I need a blech is because Nira Kimavashal. So just a reasoning difference, but not really, it's a nafk bin halacha. Well, L'Maisa L'chor is a nafk bin halacha. If you have an item, a hot plate, it could cook. It's a hot plate. It can cook. However, it just has one setting, on and off. So one setting, or plug in, plug out. On Shabbos, when I want to put a pot back on that blech,
If you said
do I need to have a blech on it, or I don't need a blech?
Right. If it's nira kimavashel, doesn't matter. Yes.
The problem, if you say nira kavashel k'mishabrura, there's nothing to do with the dials, with the being mechat to the gechalin.
Yeah.
Has to nira kimavashel. If it's a hot plate that can cook, the problem. According to the Alter Rebbe, says the reason for Blech is Shemi Yechata, there's no issue. Now the Mishnah Berurah would agree that for Shehiyah, at a Shabbos, it would be okay. You wouldn't need a Blech on something which has no dials,
Right.
because it's Mitzad Shemi Yechata Erev Shabbos.
He's no
The
problem.
shadow is, why did Chazal require a Blech on Shabbos when the food's already fully cooked? And you have no other way to return the food on Shabbos. Now return the food fully and cooked. Not midrabanan, midiraisi, you can't return it because it's not cooked. You'll be cooking on Shabbos or even Bishul. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe, and so this could be a nafkamin.
They make such a thing. Cook that there's something one die.
Sure, a lot of the hot plates that won't dial.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
I don't use it. I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
on and
have
off.
either.
It's on and
I don't
off.
have either, but I hear from people in Shiurim that
That's why I'm asking. This. It's on and off. That's it.
I'm now giving a series for women, a 3-week series. Tomorrow's the last day. And we had some discussion about this last week. The ladies were asking about this, that they have such a...
Yeah, the old fashioned ones. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It made like especially for Shabbos.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Very hot.
They used to sell them in the stores. I never bought them, but they had big, very large rectangular pieces in boxes with some hachshedim on it and everything.
got it.
So they're around. Maybe they're still available. I don't know.
Why, it's on and off?
Maybe it's more popular. Maybe it's more popular at Yisrael.
Put it in.
That's it.
Israel.
Like
What?
quick
Israel.
cook.
Made in Israel?
Slow cooking. something.
Oh, yes.
Israel heat, he says it's called.
Oh,
What is it called?
Israel heat. Israel heat.
We can keep up.
Now, the rest of the Tanoi Chazara, both the Alter Rebbe and the Mishnah Berurah are ingredients that why do I need to have my mind daiti lachzire, oide biyade, not mimefana mimechel lamechem to put it in another pot. The reason behind this is because all nira kimavashal, so I want to show it as a continuation to my previous bishul. I'm not making a new bishul. Shenkin, if I let go of it, I'm a siach das, or I put it into another pot, so it's a new pot. Any of these things, right? I break the hemshechias of what was happening earlier. It's not a hemshich. It's not a chazara. It nira kimavashal lachatchila b'Shabbos, and that chazal aser because it seems like you're cooking, feels like you're cooking, not because of Shemi Yechata. Okay.
That's why I said put a mamish a piece of silver foil on top of your blech.
Again, but that's for the blech issue.
No, I'm saying for Hazara.
But for chazara, you need to have a blech. You need to have a blech.
But even if I have a blech, I have to put a blech on top of a blech now. Be the Mishnah Berurah.
Why?
what does
No, the blech is good.
What does the paper make?
No, the blech is good. What's wrong with the blech?
Because now if you're saying I'm near Kimavashal, what does it accomplish? By having a
So the Mishnah Berurah learns, and this is based on the Ran. The Ran learns that there's still an Nira Kavashal. It's a good question you're asking. I mean, the way I learn, I didn't want to get into it over here. The way I understand it is that there's 2 levels of Nira Kimavashal. That there's a Nira Kimavashal of putting something on without a blech, and the Nira Kimavashal that I've broken the hemshich. When I don't have a blech, I didn't break. It could be I had it held in my hand and I had a mind to
Right.
return it, and I didn't break the hemshich.
right.
It's a different type of Nira Kimavash. It's like a stronger one that doesn't matter if you held on to it. Just putting something directly in a fire is problematic. If you use the blech, you're still going to have it as a hemshich. Why? You still need to have
Yeah,
it.
but if I have it as a hemshich, I still need a piece of silver foil.
Yeah, still do. Yeah.
If nobody's
So my hot
washing
plate,
the
I have
blech,
such a hot plate. Plug it in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
so-
according to Mishnah Berurah, you're going to have to have blech.
nobody,
If that's the Mishnah Berurah.
nobody
If
cooks.
that's the
that.
Alter Rebbe, that's the Tat Shemi Yechata. You can't be mechata.
Right.
No need for a blech.
Right.
Nobody cook with a blech.
No,
What's
no,
with
it's
the
hot.
blech?
I
Nobody.
put raw meat on my blech all Arab Shabbos all the time.
To cook?
Yeah.
You cook
Yeah,
with a blech.
of course.
It's the whole night there.
Yeah, it's
Nobody
2 hours.
cook. People cook
No, I
without
cook
the
it.
blech.
You put it directly on the blech.
Yeah, no, I have a hot plate, and I sear it before Shabbos in the oven for just mamish to hold in the moisture, and I put it on the blech, and it cooks for 2 hours till I come home, till I serve the main course. So it's mamish. It's
Oh, you eat Friday night.
yeah,
It's mivashin, not milk. It's
yeah,
mivashin,
mamish,
mivashin.
yeah. You
What
can't
are
eat
you
it.
What are you cooking on the blech? What are you cooking on the blech?
Meat.
Piece of meat
Uh-huh.
for
Okay.
2 hours. It's nice and soft. At 250, it's very delicious.
Very fresh.
Yeah, it's nice and soft.
Okay,
And if
so
there's no-
Not
Yeah.
no.
it's hot.
what happens if you wake up in the morning, Shabbos morning, your pot is sitting on the fire and the chocolate is burning?
It's dry.
What are your
all the water,
options?
all the water gone.
And water is leaving and you're worried. This week I had by me a suffix. It was a big suffix. In the morning, suffix azoi, and the Rebbetzin was machriya that we're not putting in water. It's fine. We're leaving it. The Baruch Hashem was okay, but there's always these fakers. So let's take a look in Sif Chavav. It's an old problem. It's already brought down in the Mardechai, one of the Rishonim. Already they had the issue. There's an old issue. Hamashkim b'boiker b'ra shekdicha tavshiloi shebegdeira shalpi akira she'ene grufo ktuma. You see, wake up in the morning, you see that your food is burning. And your kira is not grufa ktuma. Grufa ktuma meant that Erev Shabbos they would shovel out the coals, or ktuma means they would sprinkle. The word ktuma means ashes. Sprinkle a layer of ashes over the fire, and that's what Chazal said. Even these methods, that's like al derech what we do today with a blech. So, if you didn't have a grufa ktuma Erev Shabbos, how do you make a grufa ktuma on Shabbos? You're not allowed to shovel out coals on Shabbos. And you're not allowed to sprinkle ash in the coals. You're doing mechabe, you're doing mavir. You can't do this on Shabbos. So how will you b'chlal do? How did you do shehiyah out of Shabbos? There are other ways that are mutter. Ma'echel ben dusai, or put the raw meat in there Shabbos, right before Shabbos. But what in this case, you didn't. That's the way you did it. And you didn't have a guard for cotton. And now I need to take it off, and I want to put it back. Misyara pen yagdiach yoiser. You're worried it might burn more. You can remove the pot from the fire. You can place a new pot, an old pot, empty pot on top of the fire of a loy kedera chadasha. New pots you couldn't place because their pots those days they were like earthenware, and the pot by a new pot you're putting on the fire would sort of like be a makab patish, and it would help the keli be a keli. It's not negaya for our pots. You take a empty pot and you turn it over. You put it on top of the fire. You put it on, turn it over, flip it over the fire.
Like this.
Va'az yasim kedeira, yeah. Va'az yasim hakdeira shatash v'teicha al gabe hakdeira comes.
You could do the aluminum package.
Exactly.
Either you flip it over or you put it on the lid.
Right.
You put it on the lid. Ve'ein kan isir v'meshamachs b'Shabbos l'kiyah she'eina grufuk tumah. You're not allowed to do chazar on Shabbos to a kira that's not got for cotton. Not a problem over here. The empty pot says temes pi akdira kira taras akdira. Since the empty pot seals off the mouth of the oven, remember those ovens those days, the stove tops, the fire was on the bottom. And the top, they had two holes. You put that pot on top, you're covering that whole area. That's like as if it's got of a cotton. Okay? So this comes from a Mardechai.
I could put on a blech.
Hagoyis in the Mardechai. And this is a blech. This is the first mention of a blech in those days. Times of the Rishonim, the mention of a blech. Basically, we're giving you an option. What should you do if you were not going for cotton Erev Shabbos and now you realize that you need to do chazara? What's your option? You can't be going for cotton on Shabbos. Use a sheet of metal. Use a kedera kanis. That was not the typical thing they did then. We do blech. That wasn't typical. This was in certain cases. You didn't do it Erev Shabbos. Oh, we'll give you an eitzah. Take a kedera kanis. Chazal don't talk about this. This is what the Hagoyis Mardechai, the Hagoyis of in the Mardechai is one of the Rishonim that wrote notes in the Mardechai.
I'm sorry, I don't understand all the translation. You're saying if you want to put something in Shabbos morning, what's the allowance according to the rabbis?
That basically you can put on a blech on Shabbos itself. Even though you didn't have one on Erev Shabbos, you can put on a blech on Shabbos and be able to return your shalom pat to the fire.
On the fire or on another vessel?
Take an empty pot, flip it over, empty frying pan, empty pot, flip it over the fire, and put your shalom pot or your soup pot, whatever you want on top of it.
As long as it was cooked before, you could warm it up, you're saying?
Yes. If you do this method.
And what items does Chabad, what does Chabad put on the blech, like in Shabbos morning? What are people putting
No,
on?
we're not talking about a blech here, we're talking about a pot. Not a blech,
Okay.
a pot. V'chein mutter litin tafshel b'Shabbos al pi kedeiras chamin. As well, you can put a food on top of a pot of cholent. Hatmuna al gabe eish, which is on the fire. Av bishi yatzei ledishim, even that spot, it's yatzei ledis. V'yichoyshim v'chiti gecholim, ki misha kedeira mafsekes bin tafshel gecholim. Since the kedeira is in between, we are not choishish concerned that you're going to stoke the coals, stoke the fire.
So it doesn't look like you're cooking and you're not soaking the coals.
Yeah. So far, Rabbi Isai, we did not discuss what would be if you lost chazara. You took your hand off, you didn't have a mind. You're talking about that you saw it's burning, you don't want it to burn more, you pick it up and you put it back down on, and this is like it's a blech. So we're telling you this is basically that you're allowed to use a pot, empty pot, and definitely a pot full of food as a blech. But does it go furthermore, not only being a blech, but does this also allow you to put it back on if you withdrew your hand and you no longer had in mind? Can you put it also back on top? So now the Alter Rebbe continues and he says, yes, it is good enough to cover for that as well. However, there is a big suffix in the Alter Rebbe, an old suffix, a doubt in this Sif in the Alter Rebbe, whether what he's going to continue now saying applies also to an empty pot. Because he starts off talking about an empty pot. Then he goes on and says the same halacha would apply to a pot full of cholent. And then he continues on when he's after discussing the pot full of cholent, and he says that you're now allowed to put a food on there, even if you let go of it, you didn't have mind to put it on, and it's not, you moved it to another pot, you were over on all the dinim of chazara, no problem. Because you're putting it on top of the pot, it's not only there's no problem Hashem yichata, because the pot serves as a blech. Furthermore, the fact that there's a hefsek between the food and the fire makes it that it's not near a kimavash anymore. Who cooks like this? No one cooks like this. It's not a very, very abnormal way of cooking. So then it's not near a kimavash anymore. You don't need any tanoi chazara. But he says all these halachas in continuation to the din of the kedeiras cham and haparat shalom. The question is, what he writes in continuation also go back to what he said at the beginning of the sif about an empty pot, and this remains a big suffix and how the Shulchan Aruch Hara paskin regarding empty pot. So there's a long Kotes Acher on the next page, a long pilpul of his, where there you can maybe see some discussion about it. It seems to be already 100 years ago, 140 years ago, we had the Tehillah David, was a Ruzhiner Chassid, and he wrote Ha'aris and Shulchan Aruch, and a lot of them were on the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch and the Rav Shulchan Aruch, not everything. But he was a Rav in Berditchev, and he writes already that over here the Alter Rebbe was not machriya. He left it as unclear what's going to be the din of the Kedei Rekonis. So some people want to go this way, and some want to go this way. So it's not klar. As well, you have here this Kuntas Acher, this pilpul on the bottom, and the svara that you're asking, what's the difference between? So let me ask you, why a blech? A blech is also not near a who cooks with a blech? Go ask a chef if they cook with blech. You could cook, but is that normal to cook that way? No guy cooks that way. Pesach.
Pesach or a tray for place, you put a black thing. Tray for a kitchen, hotel.
Oh, if you want to.
Yeah, you want to use a hotel stove, you put a black one.
So some want to tie in that just like the blech, we still consider a problem there k'mevashel. So what's the empty pot? It's also a sheet of metal. But what's the difference? Just like we say that the blech is bottled to the kira, this is also bottled to the kira. It becomes bottled to the kira. Masha'in kain, a pot full of food doesn't become bottled to the kira. When you add a piece of metal, it's like sort of like you're adding to the construction of the oven. You put on a piece of metal on. Good. But that becomes bottled to the kira, tuffle to the kira. Masha'inkin, having a pot of food, the food doesn't become bottled to the kira. It's not kira material. So then you're putting something on, it's mamish hefsik and deer. So we know it's a davar barer, like we're going to see now. On top of a food pot, which is called a kederas chamin, you can definitely put things on even out of the refrigerator. Freezer, challah, schnitzel, as long as they're dry, they're not wet. You can warm them up to even if they become very hot. Yatzalet bay, because there's no bishul, and there's no nira kimavashal, and there's no shemi yichata. This is your blech. It's very abnormal. Only shaila is when you take an empty frying pan or empty pot, you flip it over. Does that? We know it serves as a blech. The Alter Rebbe just taught us from that guy smart chaherezik a grufa ktuma. This is an amma, I'm a chaber, by the way, in Sif Gimel. The shaila only is does it go to the next level? Does it also help us for that? It will also not be near a kimavashal. That's not clear. The Ramah, by the way, held that it is the Ramah. It's clear from the Ramah that the Tanai Chazara still apply to the Kedei Rekonis. However,
what does it mean? What's that word?
An empty pot.
Kedera.
The Magen Avram is where the suffix comes. In the Magen Avram, there where you could learn different ways.
Here in Shabbos, I see people take out the kugel and put it on the hot water, on top of the hot water.
That's okay if it's warm.
The hot warm is warm.
That's okay.
It's just the cooking,
Kugel's hot still.
If the kogel's still hot.
you know.
Can we put directly on the blech, or do we need to flip over something and put it on top on Shabbos morning? Whatever we want to warm up that's cooked.
Flip it over on the blech. So what the
Uh-huh.
Poskim say, if Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, for example, his mahalach was that it's not clear about the empty pot. What its status is? It's definitely like a blech. The shilos, it's more than a blech. It's like as if the top of a shalom pot. So Shlomo Zalman and maybe Rav Vosner also was matzia that if you use a blech and a flipped over pan, that's for sure not neder kimavashal, both together. So that's what I tell people, that if you have a problem,
Put something.
you have your blech anyways on.
Put something.
So turn over, you want to warm up some chalas or schnitzlach, flip over a silver foil pan or another pan on top of the blech, and then you have that both together, yishloimer, that's good enough. Yishloimer, that's good enough.
It take 10 hours to warm up.
It's not
Put
for
a pot
sure, but
Right, cooking.
no, it's going to warm up. Yeah, sure. It's
It will
gonna
warm up. It's not
The
gonna
heat
cook.
gets very hot, it will even burn the bottom of your chalas.
Yeah.
I've done it, and if you leave the bottom of the challah there, it will get burned. If you leave it
And
too long.
directly from the fridge to the top of the pot, or do you need a few minutes to let the condensation let out?
Right, you have to let it. If there's any
Uh-huh.
frosting on it, you have to let it
We don't do
evaporate.
this way.
Very good
do.
point. Shkoyach for
And then
that
also,
point.
if the silver tin foil is
Yeah,
gonna cave in, sometimes it's a lot of weight on the tin foil. So is that a problem if it crushes?
So use then a frying pan. Use a frying pan or something else that won't bend.
Sandwich wife has a
The babshi.
special. It's called
Rabbi.
babshi.
What's the issue with the bending?
It's just a little bit. It's not a problem. But if the whole thing's going to flatten out, if you're going to
Yeah.
put a shalom pan on top
So,
of your
so maybe
pan,
like do a double tin foil or something.
maybe, but I don't think it's going to withstand a shalom pot.
Uh-huh.
You should.
And then the liquid in the cholent pot, it's
If
no
you want
problem
some
with the liquid.
schnitzlach and challah, it's fine. But if you want to do
Uh-huh.
something like a shalom pot, so that's my eitzah yutzah. If some reason you let go of the shalom pot or the soup pot or whatever it was, you didn't let go. You didn't think you're going to have guests, and then now 5-10 minutes later they come in or whatever it is. You want to put it back on. Do it Shem Zaman Erbas Chap, blech with a flipped over pan, and it's as if al derech. Yishloimer, it's al derech, a food pot in between.
Even soup and even cholent with the liquids from the fridge?
Yes, as long as it's warm. As long as not from the fridge. As long as it's warm.
Oh, it's warm. So let's say Shabbos morning, you have more guests coming.
Because
So what do you do?
liquids, you have a problem of bishul if it's cold. As
Uh-huh.
long as it's still hot enough to eat, machmas chamimusay. It doesn't have to be atzaledes, but it's still warm enough that people will eat the cholent. And warm enough that people will eat the soup, at least most people. Then you can put it back in this mukin. You can actually be able to put a cholent pot on top of another pot. It's not going to work. So
When do you allow?
But if you already put the cholent back in the fridge and people come 2 hours later,
Oh,
it's problematic, you're saying.
yes, correct. You have
Uh-huh.
you're getting it clear. Let's look inside.
When you allowed to take
Yeah.
out water from the on Shabbos and put in the chunk pot because you saw it's burning.
From the
So
water.
the issue with that is that one of the dinim in the Daf Lamed Ches Lamed Beis in Parakira is that the Gemara says Pina mimeichal meichal. If you move the food over to another pot, can you put the pot on the fire? And the Gemara says teiku actually, and we paskin the chumrah with its teiku. Most Rosh and Ram paskin the chumrah that you're not allowed to put from another pot on. When you take water in a cup,
That's the Rishon.
it's another. No, it's a
it's
klisheni.
Oh, the Shane is saying.
It's another pot, another meichal. Now you're putting it back in the original in another klirishin. That's problem pina meichel and meichem. However, in the Mishnah Brura, there is an understanding in the Mishnah Brura that's okay. There is an understanding in the Mishnah Brura it's okay. It's a very unclear Mishnah Brura, and even many Litvish Paiskim that always go straight with the Mishnah Brura have issues with the Mishnah Brura. It's not clear. He deleted this whole condition of moving from one pan to another. He deleted it, and he explains why he deleted it, and his explanation is not understood. So you'll see, even the Lamitas Malachas book from David Ribiat and others, they had issues with it, and they said better to machmer not to do this. Even though when they filed the Mishnah Brura, they said don't put the klisheni. But you do have many girls that grow up in Beis Yaakov, so they taught them that you could use a klisheni. Those who filed out to Rebbe Shulchan don't have that leeway. It's clear that you cannot do a klisheni. It has to be from klirishin to klirishin. Means you have to bring one to the other. The urn to the pot to the urn. So that's more difficult. Especially today when people don't leave, like it used to be, people will leave kettles on the Blech on Shabbos. People don't really do that today. They have hot water urns, right? So everyone has the hot water urn, so it's plugged in, so it's not movable.
On Pesach, I use a urn.
You use the urn, you leave it over, you leave it overnight. What, a glass one?
Metal.
And it whistles the whole time.
No, it's not that type.
You take the pot to the
Close
water
and
and
seals?
straight.
It's just boiling the whole time.
Coffee, okay.
What do you do? You take the pot shunt and go to the hot water and go straight.
Yeah. Just wait. You don't want to make it flashing your hot water because you want to have milk the next morning. You want to have your coffee. So what you should do is just let out the steam for a minute. Let out the zaya, the
On the
steam, cholent, because you don't want all that hot zaya reaching the spigot of the hot water urn.
Otherwise, I make it.
But you want that if there's any steam, by the time it reaches there, it should not be yatzeh. So you want to let out the steam for a minute, and then you can go over and hold it a little lower down, not like all the way next to it. Hold lower down and let the water come in, like that. And that's it. You can add shell like that.
What do you do with
But
the
again,
pot?
there are those that follow. There are those that understand in the Mishnah Brura that it would be okay to take a cup in between. So you will see certain people do that, and that's based on a certain understanding of Mishnah Brura.
What do you do with the cover of the chunk? You're allowed to put it down. You took off the chunk now. Put the cover on the.
Yeah. The cover you can put back. Yeah, as long as the steam that's on it is still warm. If it got cold, you're gonna have to wipe it off before you pack it on. The droplets.
Otherwise, you're cooking the water on
Yeah,
the steam.
yeah. I mean, you're not having kavanah to do it, but segregation. And
that's why I have to be careful. Some people are open their cover and go like this, and you see something dropping from there.
if you're doing this all very quickly, just moving it, shouldn't be an issue. It's very hot, the lid. It's not gonna become cold, right? But if some things going on over there, then it takes a while, then you'll have that problem. But normally it's not an issue.
What I do is I leave the lid on the blech. I shake up the water and then I down on the
Okay,
blech.
then it stays warm.
Yeah.
And it stays warm. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're talking about Onik Shabbat.
I see someone does that on Shabbos in the shul when he makes a kli sheni, and he wants to make a kli shlishi. So then other people, everyone in the shul likes to make their own kli shlishi. Those people that are doing kli shlishi. So the people don't want to use the kli sheni that has the droplets on the bottom over there. So what do? Problem of cooking, right? So he does it. I see, he takes the cups And right as soon as people use the cup, he shows turn it over on top of the hot urn, leave the cup on top of the hot water urn so the droplets in there stay warm.
So much.
They stay warm. So when you put it there, it was warm, it stays warm, or it evaporates. And then you don't have any problem using those cups again. So you have a bunch of these cups in the shul like that.
I heard
In the beginning, when the first person did it, I didn't understand what he's doing. I asked him, "What are you doing?" He was an older fellow, and he explained to me what he's doing. So wow, it's a chap.
well, I heard the Klosenberger Rebbe.
Yes, he was Mako. The Kloisenberger Rebbe was Mako with the Shiloh of the drops. Yes, I saw his tshuva.
Rabbi, we have the whole Shabbos is on
Other Paiskim also were Mako.
We have to enjoy Shabbos. So why Chachamim do not make knuckle on this with the chulent? If you eat called chulent, my Shabbos is no good anymore.
I'm going to answer with a story. At one time came, the Alter Rebbe had one of his sons. He had 3 boys. One of his, he had girls also, but one of his sons was Reb Chaim Abraham. And they one time came into him Shabbos, the Chassidim, and they saw what he was eating on Shabbos. And he's eating bread mit knubbel, bread and garlic. That was the whole meal. They said to him, Reb Chaim Avraham, Einik Shabbos, yeah, Rabbi Azar was there, and he made a macha. He said, I mekublani from my father that a mitzvah shaguf nene mehen, you don't have to be mahader. If the guf has a lot of hana, so there's different approaches, you know. The Eibishter wants us to have oinig, but the oinig the way he wants us to have oinig.
What's the definition of Oinik Shabbos?
It's not Pasha Shak. Most of it is to have Einik Shabbos.
Okay.
This is not a madrega for everyone. It's the Baal madrega.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a Baal madrega.
Not the Pasha Shak.
Yeah, but Chabad doesn't have an issue with putting the tea in the kli sheni. That's more of an Ashkenazi thing, right? Chabad, we don't have a problem with that.
Shlishi.
Shlishi.
Shlishi. They do. Oh, you mean the tea essence? You mean the tea essence?
No, the tea bag, the Lipton tea.
Tea bag?
Put it
No,
in-
they do kli shlishi.
The Sfardim used to-
And the older Hasidim used to all do kli essence, tea essence. They would not use kli shlishi.
You know very well.
They would use tea essence.
I showed a big Tamachot, Sfardim.
Okay, Rabbi Yisai, let's take a look further in the Sif. I said we would finish the Sif tonight. One more question.
What off?
Kuf Chaf Hey.
Okay, thank you.
One is, I have details on my Blech. If I have to eat, what is the cholent? Can I pick up the pot that is?
Yes, yes, the best thing. You're
I have to pick up I have to pick up, I can do it while it's on the Blech.
I can do also.
Pick up the cholent pot.
Oh, you want to say while it's inside the thing?
Yeah,
You could do it while it's in there, yeah. Because there's only a problem mixing. Just pouring in a little water is not going to mix it.
and it wouldn't be a good problem with chicken soup. Put hot water to the chicken soup.
No problem.
I don't have to pick up.
No,
the-
no.
I have a Blech that covers.
So one of the Paiskim I saw says, oh, maybe it's considered a mixing. You're not allowed to mix the pot in the fire. Just pouring a little water in is not, you pour gently in, it's not mixing the challenge.
Chicken soup is ready with liquid.
Yeah, just pouring in a little water is not going to do anything to it. Not making any movement in the food. It's just a little water on the top. How much water you're adding? A cup, 2. It's not a
Yeah,
lot.
but with thing with cholent, if you add the water, you shouldn't mix, right? Just
No,
leave it-
yeah, you don't mix. We don't mix. That we don't mix.
That-
But if you did mix, it's still okay because it's fully cooked.
that's in the morning.
But we don't mix pots on the fire, even fully cooked. On the fire. Only on the fire. Off the fire, you can mix it.
When you pick up the pot.
On the fire, we're machmir, it's a sheet of the kolboy, which held that even something fully cooked, you should not mix it while it's on the fire. Because somehow mixing will do something to the process and make it cook better, even though it's fully cooked. Very hard to understand the sheet of the kolboy, but we do find that the Magen Avram, the Poskim are concerned for that shita, and therefore lachatchila we don't mix anything, but pouring some water into the pot is not an issue. A good question. You have a very easy time because you have it on the blech. It's very simple for you to add to your chicken soup or to your urn, just picking it up. Masha'inkin, if it's plugged in, it gets difficult. You got to start doing juggling acts over there, and unless you're going with the mishabrura of the klisheni. But other than that, you're going to have a problem.
Rabbi, another question. I bring hard-boiled eggs from home, put it here in the fridge, for Sudat Lishi. Then I crack it and make egg salad. Somebody helped me Friday, I was short time, I'm in Shabbos. Usually I take the eggs, I break it and take off the clipper. I saw him doing it, I don't know if it's right or wrong. He took a pot, put the eggs, put some hot water from the urn, put on it. So what are you doing? He said, much easier to peel it when it's little warm. Are you allowed to do that?
And he took it in the fridge.
I don't see what the problem is
No,
because
the eggs cooked already from the fridge. I want to peel the
Because it's already off the fire.
I mean,
off the fire.
the eggs are dry. They're
Yeah.
dry.
I put hot water.
There's no
in the
water.
fire.
If there's no water there, there's no
Yeah.
problem. It's all dry. It's cooked already.
Yeah.
So it's all cooked. Ein b'shlach, b'shel v'davar yavish. What could be the problem? I don't see the problem.
He's not mevash.
It's a good question, but I don't see the problem.
Because now it's easier to peel. That means he's
Easier to peel.
No, but even ein b'shlach, b'shel v'davar yavish.
It's cooked already.
Something's dry and cooked. You're allowed to put in hot water again. It's not a problem.
You're allowed to. Okay.
Yeah, you're allowed to.
Clearation water.
Cleavish and water.
You're
Just
saying you could
now
add water
Hot
to the
water.
pot on the fire?
As
Not
long as
on the
the eggs
fire.
are.
It's not on the fire. I take the hard boiled eggs, put it.
No, not you. No, not you. Just the question before, to add water to the pot on the fire.
Yeah, you could. You could.
Good idea.
Okay. Rabbi say you're allowed to put food on top of a kedetas cham of cholent vafilu in middle of chavav. The line starts with afilu. If you remove this food, still Erev Shabbos was already off the fire. It's already on the counter. You didn't have a mind to put it back. And you put it on the ground. And even if you transfer it to another pot, a yashin was a food that was old, in the stand like got totally cooled off. However, obviously we're talking a case where there's no bishul, like there's no liquid there. Even normally on Shabbos is also to return these things to the fire. And I feel even in a case which is al-kabikir and grufa ktuma, it's still a problem when you're missing these conditions. Why? Seems like you're cooking on Shabbos. Mikol mokim, still in this case, you're putting it on top of a kedera. On top of gecholim. This is not the way of bishul. So this is definitely clear that a kedetas cham in a pot of cholent is okay. It also seems that he's referring to even what he said earlier, that even a pot, an empty pot would be okay on top of an empty pot. However, it's not 100% clear. Therefore, it's better to do the eight selection, as Alman Erbach said, to, if you're using an empty pot, to put on, do the blech also, but siddur for both the blech and empty pot. If you really need to, you could use the empty pot. Now, as we go to the final stretch of the sieve, and we have to go to Ma'ariv. If we're going to have a minyan, based on this, we could say that our oven, which has on it a maziva.
What's another? Great.
No. Maziva means like this. Let's say, like pizza ovens. You have a ceiling at the top of the pizza oven, which is very hot. You see when they want to keep the pizzas hot,
Keep the box on top.
they put the box on top over there.
All right.
Or on top of the matzah oven. Those are very, very hot, those stones on the top
Right.
over there. Boiling hot. It's the heat sitting there all day.
Heat rise.
So that's called a maziva. Our tanurim, our ovens, the bottom of page Kuf Chafei, sheyesh olav maziva, that have on it a maziva, even if you did not make Gufan Ktuma Erev Shabbos, the fire, you never touched the fire. V'chein Tana Beisach as well as you're dealing with an oven where you heat up your house with, not for cooking. People had a special fireplace for heating up the house. It was very hot in the winter. Shekol Sheni Gada for cotton. It's not Gada for cotton. There's no blech. Filo eish betoiche, and even there's fire there. Motor litan al gaba Shabbos. You're allowed to put on this ceiling. You're allowed to put a pot of food there without any conditions. It's not a normal place for people to cook. Av b'shiyatze that is by why shekol mashamotor litan api kedera tmuna gabe gechalim. You're allowed to put whatever you're allowed to put on top of a pot, which is sitting on the fire. Since the fire, the maziva is in between the fire and the pot.
It's like you took a pot and put it upside down and you put it on top of it.
Correct. And
What case is he talking about where it's mamish, you already took it off the fire, it's cold?
all these cases that we said before that you were allowed to be due to on top of a shalom pot, the same thing would be on top of the maziva, the tanner.
Mamish, it's boiling hot. Like a blech.
But because nobody even washes this,
It's like a blood. You're saying mutter or aser.
It should be sir. I'm saying what would it be?
Just like the top of your shalom pot is also very hot on top.
But
It's not about how hot it is.
I'm
It's
sure-
about, is this a normal place to cook or abnormal place to cook? So you can take your cholent and your soup pot and put it on top over there, even if you had removed it without any of these conditions. We don't have the scenario in our cases, but maybe in certain cases there are.
Ovens.
Things are constantly changing. You would not be allowed, you'll be allowed to do it. However, it is
Put on your radiator.
radiator, right? Example, radiator, yeah. Now,
Nobody cook in the radiator.
no, not a
The
problem.
radiator is there, so let it go. But nevertheless, you're allowed to put this stuff to warm.
Now,
Again, put a pot upside down. And
They don't need to put the pot upside down.
however,
They don't need to put
here the Alter Rebbe is
Right,
going to
right.
be a
Nobody-
second shita, meaning there's no question about. Remember, Rabbi said there's two things we're concerned about when it comes to Dini Chazar on Shabbos. Shema Yichata Begecholim and Nira Kavashal, two different chashas. Nira Kavashal, Shema Yichata Begecholim. So Blech takes care of Shema Yichata according to the Alter Rebbe. The other Tanai Chazara, those are to deal with the shash and Nira Kavashal. Now, on top of the maziva, even though it's very hot there, it's definitely not the normal place where people cook foods. People want to cook it inside, not on top. No one cooks food, raw food there. They don't lechatchila do that.
What's a maziva?
The ceiling of the oven, the top of the oven, the roof of the oven. So it's definitely not near the kimavash. The shaila is, what about shemi yichata? So it seems okay. There's no chash shemi yichata. It's also like a blech because the maziva is like a blech. Just like you have a sheet of metal, so there's bricks in between are the blech. However, now the Alter Rebbe is going to bring a deya. Both these sheetas are brought in the Magen Avram. It's not the Alter Rebbe's chiddush. There's another shita which says that no, although mitzad the chashash and nira kimavasha there's no problem on top over there. You don't need any tnoi chazara. You could put it on even if you put it on the table and you didn't have in mind and everything. Put it back on top of there, the roof of the oven. But mitzad the chashash Hashem yichata, you need a blech over there. You need to put something, a brick or something in between your pot and the rooftop of the oven. Why? Because Shema Yichata works that you need to make a recognition for yourself not to come stoke the fire. The fact that you're putting on top of the ceiling, that's not a recognition. You didn't create the ceiling. It's been there always. That's the way the oven was constructed. You didn't do anything. You need to make a hecker for yourself. So you need to put a sheet of metal or a brick or something in between, a stone, in between your pot and the top of the maziv. And the Alter Rebbe and the Magen Avram say that this opinion is the Iker opinion. So although Mitzanir Kim Vashal, there would be no problem, you still need to ensure the issue of Shemi Yichata. Let's take a look. The top of page Kuf Chav Zayin. V'yesh oimrim, and others say, Sh'af apishena yatzeh ledesham. Even if that area was not hot enough to be yatzeh ledes. Tzarech shi'eniach ata, you need to place now. Shum davar, something. Anything. Tachas HaKedera, under the pot. Lahafsik beino lagicholim shebetaner, to make a hefsik. Kedei sheyir lo yeheker bazeh, in order that you should have a heker, not to come to touch the fire. The rooftop of the oven that's been made original, it was not your construction, not your doing. It's part of the function. It's part of the construction of the oven. It's not a hecker to you. Is to hold you back. What do you see there abnormal that's going to hold you back? The Magen Avraham, the Alter Rebbe Paskin, that this latter sheet is the Iker sheet, and therefore, even a Maziva Satana, you should use something in between. But remember, that's only there to deal with the Chash Shemichata, but Nira Kimavashal has already been taken care of because it's an abnormal spot. He just add in the bottom of the ending of the sif something interesting, and then I want to just discuss one more thing because we're still waiting for Minyan. Since there is an earlier sheet that is Mekel, although we hold the second sheet as the Iker, we could rely on the earlier sheet in certain cases. Before the tanner was heated up, let's say you have the Shabbos guy comes in, you heat up your fireplace every Shabbos, and that you're allowed to do Amir La'akam on Shabbos for heat. Because you're allowed to have the Shabbos guy come in and fix your heating system and turn it on, do whatever needs to be done to get the heat on. Right? So what happened? The guy didn't come in yet. You can put your food on top without a separation in between, relying the first shita, if you put it there before the fire was turned on, before the guy came in. Since you have it
That's really cool. Because the oven is really cold. The guy comes and starting it now, and he's starting.
You do it before he came, it's not a problem. Now, I just want to point out one thing, Rabbi Say. There's a discussion about blechs, whether when you make the blechs on the stove top, should they also cover the knobs or not? And you find in the store two types: ones that cover the knobs, one that don't cover the knobs. And Ramoshe, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach both hold that Me'ikar Din is no problem. Ramoshe says toif to get one that covers the knobs. I think Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach holds there's no inyan to cover the knobs. Ramoshe held better to be machmer, but not Me'ikar Hadin. Me'ikar, you don't need it. But I want to point out what I feel from this sif that we learned just now, these last dinim, about Maziva Satanur, about putting the pot there. From that over there is that you don't need to cover the buttons. A minute. Let's look at the fire over here. In this
What do you
oven.
mean you don't need to cover? What does that mean, not need to cover?
1 minute. Did you touch the fire? Did you do anything to the fire in the oven? No. The fire and the place where the knob is, the knobs, you did nothing to it. All you have is a sheet of metal on the top in between your pot and where the heat is hitting it.
What knobs would it be then? There's no knob in the fire.
The fire is the knob. That's where the knob is.
Why? It's very different. There's opening the door.
You don't need to make a hecker where the fire is. You don't need to make a hecker.
It's already a hecker. In fact, it's inside the oven.
The knob should be the main.
The knob's on the outside. The fire's in.
You don't. Over here, you have a case. Where are you putting the sheet of metal?
On top.
Is it on the fire? It's not on the fire. The sheet of metal. Is it on the place where you have access to the fire? No. So you're allowed to make a hecker somewhere else as long as it's underneath your pot, in between where the heat is hitting your pot. And your fire is exposed, you can easily take a stick and go, there is nothing for you to have the hecker on the fire or next to the fire.
Oh.
So to me, I see from this din, this is my own personal takeaway, it's not from this year, this previous years that I thinking about it, to this discussion whether you need to cover the knobs or not. And again, me'ikar din all the poskim are masking me don't need to cover the knobs. Just I feel that from the Alter Rebbe, it's clear you don't need to cover because he allows you to, and this is from the Magen Avraham, that you're allowed to put that sheet of metal or brick in between the pot and the heat source, and you've not touched the fire. You've not done any hecker in the fire. So this doesn't seem to me any api halacha. Now, someone could come and say, listen, people sometimes play around with the knobs. Okay, it's a nice thing, nice hitter, like they have the knob, these plastics on the lights. I'm not here to say anything wrong with it. It's a nice thing. You want to be shomer yourself from coming to Aveda, it's a shein azach. But to go and say that you chayiv to do it, you have to buy that, and your wife bought that one, and your husband bought one, you have to send it back to the store, or you go to someone else's house and you're like, oh, they don't have to use the blech, the machmirin blech. Not nicht emes. Nicht emes. You don't need to cover the knobs. Again, if Shema Zalman holds you don't need it at all, and you don't. And Moshe held it's matoiv to cover the knobs. It's not an ikar adin, and I think from the Alter Rebbe it's clear you don't need it all to cover the knobs. It was not the chashash of Chazal. They said the hatakana was that in between the heat source and the pot.
They
There
didn't
should be
have
a-
knobs.
Could be true.
They didn't have knobs.
It could be true, but we can't be mechanic. But we can't mechadish gzeira.
I would say
What you're saying reminds me of the story with the Chai Adam. The Chai Adam said that Baruch Hashem, there's no potatoes around.
Yeah.
When the Goinim made the takana against
Right,
kidneys,
yeah.
Ashkenazim,
Yeah, they were
and then we were, because where would we eat?
Pesach, we're not going to eat.
Yeah, you can make your bacon with potatoes.
I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, it was a little bit differently. The Chai Adam had wanted to say, now the Chura, that if the potatoes would have been there, would have been Aser. I think he wants to ask for the potatoes. Chai Adam, I think, wanted to ask for the potatoes. Because he said if it would have been there, right? They say that the Divrei Chaim that Avtzan said about this Chai Adam because, they had nothing to eat in Russia. Mamish nothing to eat. What was there was just the potatoes, the bulbas, the kartoffel, the katoshka. That was all there was to eat. So he said that the Chai Adam wanted to mekatze the Chai Adam. Well, what are we going to eat?
Potatoes are going to eat really nothing.
And now you see what they do with the potato starch. You can do whatever you want with the potato starch. You take away the potato, what's Gate Menessen Shem Pesach?
Yeah.
So the oilam was makel, but it would have been there b'shas the takana. Maybe they would have asked it in Echanami, but if they didn't ask it, it's not osir.
Yeah.
Say that Chazal would be here today. This thing would be. They would have said, put on these things in the lights. Maybe you're right. I don't know. Maybe they would say,
Makes sense.
electricity. They would do it, but that doesn't mean that we can come and say that it's osir. Because you can't be mechadish at takana.
Yeah.
And we always have to remember, all takanas Chazal, the Gra brings us down and Kabbalah brings it down, they have deeper reasons behind it.
Right.
Al pi Kabbalah and al pi Soid Hashem. Takana is not just what it seems on the outside. Sometimes al pi Nigla, when you're reading Shulchan Aruch and you read Chazal, it seems like the reason, the shvacha reason, is it really a concern? Is it not a concern? You have to know there's always deeper reasons behind things that Chazal said and halacha, and we see in the Zohar Kodesh and Arizal, we see so many deep reasons behind mitzvahs, things that so we don't know the real deep things behind it. Every din d'Rabbanan also has a shoresh mamayla as to what this inyan is mamayla, what hamshacha it is, what isser it is mamayla. But this is the inyan.
I would say Stampo should cover the knobs. Nothing to shop. It's a safety for the kid. He should not come and touch it.
True, I'm not against those blacks. There's nothing wrong with it. I have one in my house that covers the knobs, but
Just for
I didn't go and buy it that way. That's what my wife had. So I'm just saying is that it's not an inyan,
It's not a chumrah.
not something to make a big deal about. That's it. Whatever you have in your house, and when you go to the store and that's what they have, whatever they have available, you buy. If they have one that covers the knobs, ma'atoiv, buy one that covers the knobs. Why not? You mahadr b'mitzvahs. But to Zagin mentioned as the muz kaif and der blech, I don't like that. That's not true.
You're saying you don't have to cover the knobs, like to put tinfoil on it?
Not if you have a blech, you don't have to do that. If you have a
Blech with 1, 2, and 3, low, medium, and high. Do you have
a blech, a sheet of metal on the fire? We're discussing if you have to have a sheet of metal covering not only fire but also the buttons, the knobs.
You're saying covering the fire is
enough. You definitely have to cover the fire. That you cannot get away with. You have to cover the fire if you want to return the
But
power.
you can change the temperature. If it's not covered, you might come to change the temperature.
Correct.
So what's that? You saying we don't have to cover the knobs?
You don't have to cover the knobs. Me'ikr hadid. It's a hiddur, but it's not an ikr. And the ikr is to cover the fire. I'm shkoyach for joining everyone. Thank you, Rabbi Davis and David and everyone for joining with all your.
Thank you so much for the share.
We're going to start Hilchas Kiddush. Al pi bakashas Rabbim.
My pleasure.
Hilchas Kiddush next week.
That's much easier.
Be'ez Hashem. Okay.
Let's come to the kiddush.
I agree with
Much
you.
easier.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, but more geschmack.
More
Maybe
cholent,
Shabbos.
more cholent.
Cholent.
That's cool.
If we'll start bringing cholent here, we might have a bigger oilam by
We
this
used
year.
to, Thursday night.
We won't have a problem with a minion if we bring cholent here.
And put the eggs in the cholent for the Sephardi folks, you know.
So, and everyone who was on Zoom will be here in person. Maybe
No,
David will come. Maybe David will take a flight over for some cholent.
Maybe somebody will pay me to come.
That I don't know about.
All right. Well,
Bye,
Listen.
enjoy everyone. Take care. Good Chodesh. Good Chodesh.
I-